welcome to the Film Element. Coming up on this episode, we take a look at the latest news from the world of film, offer up the best and worst films from April, analyse another dodgy film in our bad taste review, and list the most iconic film footwear. Cadbury's cream eggs may be off the shelves for another year, but it's not all bad news, especially if you're Daniel Craig. Yes, I know, here we go, another Bond story. But when it's a former 007 giving his 2 pennies worth, you really should listen. After all the speculation over who's going to be next to don the tuxedo, Pierce Brosnan has said he would love Craig to carry on as MI6's finest, saying, "It's his for the taking, go for it man, he's brilliant." Many would doubtless share that sentiment, but wouldn't it be tragic if he ended up outstaying his welcome? After all, Pierce was 49 when he quit, which funnily enough is the age Daniel is now. To be fair to the Irishman, he did also add there is a definite point where you have to say enough's enough for sure. I'm not going to put a number on it. Couldn't agree more. The whole thing's starting to make referendums and snap general elections seem entertaining. If you're an avid follower of Roobla, you may recall that just a few weeks ago we ran a story about poor old Shia LaBeouf, whose latest film Man Down sold just 1 ticket here in Britain, at the Real Cinema in Burnley to be exact. Since then, it has transpired that a further 2 tickets were snapped up, equaling box office takings of £21, or a little over $26. On the plus side, that's a sales increase of 200%. How many movies can lay claim to that? All of this is in stark contrast to the fortunes of Adam Sandler, as it was recently revealed that Netflix users have spent 500 million hours watching his movies. Just think what you could do with that. Mind you, I could have spent all that time playing tennis and I still wouldn't be any good. And so to some upcoming DVD and Blu-ray releases, because May sees the return of La La Land to the public eye. How fast it will fly off the shelves is anyone's guess, but more records beckon surely. Other highlights that will be available over the coming weeks include the Samuel L. Jackson narrated documentary I Am Not Your Negro, as well as the Keanu Reeves sequel John Wick Chapter 2. The critically acclaimed A Street Cat Named Bob, based on a true story and starring the criminally underrated Luke Treadaway, is the top Brit flick to go on release. At the other end of the scale, horror fans will be entertained, or not, as the case may be, by Underworld Blood Wars, how many is that now? And Resident Evil The Final Chapter, let's hope it is. Despite that disappointing pair, the worst has definitely been saved for last. Yes indeed, ladies and gents, the much dreaded release of 50 Shades Darker is just around the corner. If memories of that Valentine's Day massacre are still fresh and make you wake up in a cold sweat, the nightmare is about to become a reality. Every month, Roobla heads to the big screen and spends way too much on combo popcorn deals to see the new features gracing our screens. Here is one of the best and one of the worst from April. April has been a scantily clad month for films, and we seem to have been experiencing a post-Oscar lull in releases. Nevertheless, this gave some opportunities for some slightly more unusual films to shine through and gain some deserved attention. Okay, so this is kind of cheating, as Park Chan-wook's erotic thriller has been doing the rounds for over a year since its premiere at Cannes Film Festival last year. However, The Handmaiden was finally released officially over here this month, which has alerted those of us who aren't film buffs to its glorious presence. And what a presence it is! A Japanese-Korean retelling of the Sarah Waters book Fingersmith, The Handmaiden is a beautifully subtle blend of Western and Asian culture, much like the house our protagonist moves to at the opening of the film. This means that it's a story which corresponds as deeply with Western culture and viewers, although it has plenty of WTF Japan moments. All we're saying is there's an octopus, and it needn't be there. What follows is a visually rich, delicious and highly sensual rollercoaster that constantly switches and defies expectation. One minute it seems gothic, the next it's making you laugh, another minute later it's highly erotic and then oftentimes revolting. And while some have complained about the masculine viewpoint of the erotic scenes, and there are a lot of them, it's overall a tale of feminine triumph over the patriarchy of its setting and era. Is it a thriller, drama, comedy, horror, or porno? There aren't many films in recent times that have so expertly balanced genre and evocative feeling whilst remaining so composed and neat. And even if feeling like you've been pinballed through some sensual car wash isn't your thing, there is a twisting plot which will change your outlook so many times you find yourself wanting to hit rewind before you're done. April was certainly not without its failures, particularly in the family film department. Whereas last month we had Kong Skull Island and Beauty and the Beast, this month we were subjected to an Easter special of The Boss Baby and Smurfs The Lost Village, both of which coincidentally made us want to go and hide in a cave for 3 days. However, this month's No Class goes to perhaps not the worst film of the month, but certainly the greatest disappointment. Asia truly did influence the best and worst of this month, as Rupert Sanders' adaptation of the popular manga of the same name failed to prove its critics wrong. With the controversial choice to cast Scarlett Johansson in a tale that is originally set in a futuristic Asian city with an Asian population, it was too transparent an attempt by Hollywood to forsake the atmosphere of the setting in order to hit margins. Nevertheless, we were excited for a film which had a futuristic dystopian premise and promised to explore the ever-popular and thought-provoking subject of the distinction between man and machine. However, the trailer appeared to be where the action and thought-provoking ended, and what we actually received was a loud, high-octane spectacle of endless sensationalism with no particular plot twist or surprises that weren't made abundantly clear from the trailer. And whilst the action scenes were certainly well executed and good, you might as well have gone to see Fast and the Furious 25 if that is what you're after. It must be said, however, that Ghost in the Shell is visually stunning and enticing, but in a way that quickly becomes vapid and without heart, a bit like watching a magician at a kids' party who is just repeatedly pulling a white rabbit out of a hat until he starts crying. All we can say is, it isn't the new Blade Runner. Everyone move along.
Good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hypersonic 55, and I'm glad that you decided to join me again for another Bad Taste review. You know, with all these streaming services like Amazon and Netflix, you happen to scan through a multitude of films, and then you happen to come across a film or two or three that happen to have that kind of trailer or a poster or just a name title that just, it demands your attention, it grabs you, and then you're just like, well, now I have to see what this is. And that is the case with Fire Twister. Just listen to that title, Fire Twister. How can you not be intrigued? When I was on Amazon and I saw this, I saw the poster, the name of the film, and I read the premise of the film. I was like, yo, I have to see what this is about. This sounds so foolish. But I assume that this is going to be a lot of fun, and it had Casper Van Dien in it as well. One of my favorite guys from, Starship Troopers, but also from one of my other favorite terrible films, Maiden Voyage, Ocean Hijack. I knew this film would be fun, and it did not it didn't disappoint at all. Fire Twister is a terrible film, but my goodness, is a heck of a lot of fun, and I'm going to tell you why in this review. So this film is basically about a man-made fire tornado born out of an explosion which causes a lot of death and destruction, and so it comes down to a group of unlikely heroes led by an ex-firefighter to combat this threat. There is mystery, intrigue, betrayal, a lot of humour and a little bit of drama, and it is so bad that it has to be seen to be believed. And so let me just tell you up front, this film does not make a lot of sense. There are a lot of rules that are just thrown out the window when it comes to physics and logic of the characters. The way in which the story pans out features some of the most foolish, illogical, downright absurd material I've ever seen in a film so far. The film tries to be serious and dramatic and have some sort of backstory, conspiracy, and certain character deaths that are supposed to carry weight. But the film is just so dumb and meaningless, and because of the poor script and bad acting, it never becomes anything more than something you could just laugh at or sigh at. And it also doesn't help that the characters are basic archetypes of people that you've seen before in this kind of genre, especially disaster films. You have the generic hero, the coward, the smart guy, the evil henchman, and the bad guy operating from the background, among others. There's also these really weird, crazy religious people included, an over-the-top TV reporter, and these terrible extras who just have the worst reaction time to some of this, disaster that's going on. And speaking of disaster, let's talk about the main star of this film, the flaming inferno itself, the Fire Twister. This thing is just a marvel to watch in all of its ridiculous supernatural kind of powers. The first thing people will be questioning is, how do people in this film not see this flaming inferno? It's a friggin' fire twister and it seems to be burning everything, and yet people seem to miss this thing on several occasions. Several of the characters in this film seem to not know where this thing is, or seem to lose track of it until it is where it needs to be because of plot, or it just happens to be right in front of their face. And I'm like, how can you people be so blind? How does no one not feel the heat before it gets to them? It's absurd. And the next thing you'll start to question is what damage this fire twister can do. On occasions, it's able to destroy whole areas of land, make houses explode, and suck people into this twister of doom, and yet other times it can barely cook people. It can suck cars up, but they don't explode. And somehow this twister happens to have a mind of its own, where it will chase people, chase specific people, and there's no clear indication as to why. And then there's also points where this twister can teleport from one point to the next. I mean, sometimes it will be right behind a set of people, and then next scene it'll be somewhere else. It makes no sense, and yet it's still so much fun to watch. This fire twister, it gets bigger, it just causes so much chaos, and it's fun to watch. It'll make you scratch your head as to how these things are happening, but it's still a lot of fun. And one other thing that needs to be mentioned is the special effects and the character deaths. As per usual in these kind of films, the visual effects are pretty cheap looking, they don't mesh well with the live action footage, and there is a good number of continuity errors in between some of these sequences, not only in the way in which it's filmed, but just where the visual effects are supposed to be in context with certain scenes. It doesn't match up. But one of my favorite parts of this film are the kills. They are all so terribly done in such a funny way. Straight from the first death, I was in hysterics, and this film just finds ways to kill people in, like, generic yet creative ways. And the first and last deaths of the characters involved are just perfect. Bloody perfect. So yeah, in conclusion, Fire Twister, do yourself a favor, watch this film, possibly drunk if you're in the mood for it. I guarantee you'll have a good time. If you can get into some of these cheesy kind of films and you don't mind the sort of, ridiculous, stupid nature of them, you'll have a good time with this one. Fire Twister, I think, might be one of my favorite recent bad, straight to DVD films that I've actually seen. It's absurdly fun. And I'm surprised I had so much fun with it. It is terrible, and there are a lot of moans and groans and confusion for me watching this. But yeah, Fire Twister is still a good time. I recommend it.
With Kicks out on DVD this month, we thought we'd take a look at some of the freshest footwear ever to grace the silver screen. So lace up and kick back, sneakerheads, it's time for a cinematic crep check.
Get away from her, you bitch!
When Ripley found herself back in the bug hunting business on planet LV-426, her shoe game was on point. Laced in Reebok's Alien Stomper high tops in the classic scarlet and grey colourway, they went from prop to shop a few years ago on Alien Day. If you're going to fight the Crazy 88, being light on your feet is a must, and the bride's shoe foo was black belt when she slipped on a pair of custom yellow Onitsuka Tigers, once worn by the legendary Bruce Lee in Game of Death, making these ass-kicking royalty. Batman was down with the swoosh back in the late 80s in his first Tim Burton assisted blockbuster. The Dark Knight rocked a pair of murdered out Bo Jackson's Air Trainer SC, and the Caped Crusader flexed hard on Gotham's crime-ridden streets. The original What Are Those moment happened when Michael Jordan went hard in the paint against the Monstars in a pair of then unreleased Space Jam Air Jordans. Fast forward a couple of decades, and these Intergalactic 11s were re-released to celebrate the film's 20th anniversary last year to instant sneakerhead hype.
I got a great idea, you guys! Slick shoes! Slick shoes? Are you crazy?
When it comes to treasure hunting and customizing sneakers, WizKid Data wasn't playing around in the Goonies. He went straight ham on his Nike Skyforce high tops, upgrading the heels to unload an oil slick, totally messing up the evil Fratelli brothers' day.
Our laces, all right.
Where we're going, you won't need laces, should have been the tagline to these iconic shoes. When Marty McFly slipped on the self-lacing Nike Air Mag, jaws dropped and wallets opened. But it wasn't until 2016 when 89 real self-lacing pairs were auctioned off to the public via Michael J. Fox's charity website. The futuristic crepes raised over £4 million for Parkinson's disease. Great Scott indeed. Are there any movie shoes you think we missed? Let us know in the comments below. That's all for this episode, but thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out Roobla.com for more film news, reviews and features.